There's one at the door, at the gate to damnation. Is it thief, thug, or whore? There's one at the door, and there's room for one more till the end of creation. Hello, and welcome to the Legendarium Green Team's Sandman series. I'm Ashaman, and today I'm joined by BefuddledPanda.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Anderson.
Hello.
And Starkast.
Hi.
Today we will be covering the first volume of the Sandman, Preludes and Nocturnes, which is issues 1 to 8. The structure we will be using is similar to our Malazan series, going an issue at a time with listener questions and final thoughts at the end. Everything in issues 1 to 8 are fair game for spoilers. There will also be very minor spoilers for the show on Netflix. So, without further ado, I will go into the summary for Sleep of the Just, issue 1. Dream of the Endless is captured and imprisoned by the magician Roderick Burgess and his son for 70 years. Alright, first impressions. What do you guys think of the first issue of this series?
I think I like the first issue the most. I think it was my favorite of the first volume because I really like to see how Dream was captured and how after his disappearance all those different things happened, like the sleep disease, and how we got a lot of references to those persons who got affected by it. Like, for example, the Sleeping Beauty reference I really liked, also the original Sleeping Beauty, where Sleeping Beauty was also got pregnant, also was raped and got pregnant and got a kid, and that was referenced in the first issue, and I like to see that because Gaiman is an author who very often uses fairy tale references and all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Although Sleeping Beauty has it easier because she actually gets to stay awake after she gives birth. Poor Unity.
Yeah.
Poor Unity, indeed. I also really liked the first issue. I thought it was really effective and did a really good job to set up the premise and introduce and clarify, like, what is it when the series talks about dream and the different kinds of dream. It's not just the sleeping kind, it's also like daydreaming, and if you have a dream to become something or go somewhere, and yeah, so overall I thought it did a really good job, and it was pretty easy to follow. I can't stop thinking about how much the depiction of Dream, the Lord of Dream, just has similarities to Neil Gaiman himself. So that was a little distracting, but overall I really liked it.
I think it's kind of cool how little Dream is like directly involved in that issue. Like, he's there, but he's captured, so he's just kind of chilling in his bubble, and all this stuff is happening because of that. It's an interesting way to start like his story, to have him not really be a part of it.
It's going to be a common thing for the series. There are frequent periods where he is an upfront protagonist, but there are also a lot of the times he's actually just a background character, and the series explores the nature of the dreams of various peoples, like cats,
Probably gonna be a lot of dead birds in that.
Oh, you'll find out. Oh man, that one's a fun issue. Yeah, the listeners might be interested to know that the sleepy sickness is actually a real thing, and yeah, it took place around the time that Dream was captured, and we actually don't know the cause of it. There's just lethargic encephalitis, it was called, and it affected like 500,000 people or something like that. And the symptoms were exactly what were described here. Roderick Burgess was also a semi-famous magician. He was in conflict with just other magicians of the time.
Mm.
I thought it was the most effective panels for me here were the scene where Roderick Burgess is having his final conversation with Dream. Conversation is one-sided because Dream doesn't say anything. But yeah, he says that you could have given me whatever I wanted. I didn't have to grow old. And then just lingers on his face for a panel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so tragic, even though Roderick Burgess is a terrible guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it perfectly encapsulates the horror of growing old. And, fight against it however you will. It's always going to be a losing battle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of ironic because, he spends all this time and energy trying to prevent aging, trying to prevent death. And that's one way that you can take a look at life and approach life is how can I keep prolonging it? But then, what are you prolonging it for? And if you instead approach okay, I accept that death is a thing, it's gonna happen, and you live your life to the fullest or to, the most meaningful way you could instead of trying to grasp at having more. So
We're going to get to have a really good conversation about this in an upcoming issue.
yeah, okay. I did also want to just mention overall the art style. Typically this art style is not my cup of tea. I prefer cleaner lines, and this is obviously more, it is very kind of more traditional comic, especially superhero kind of comic art.
It's almost impressionistic at points.
Yeah, and I did find it to be very effective for the tone and the content. Those horror scenes, especially the end of Roger Burgess's son, I forget his name.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that guy. When at the end he's just going crazy. That
The
those
curse of eternal waking. Oh, isn't
yeah.
that the most horrifying punishment you can think of?
Yeah. So the art, it really fits the tone. And I know the art styles are going to change throughout the series, but
Mhm.
I think overall they do, yeah. They help contribute to the reader's experience in a positive way.
And there are, to me, a lot of key panels that really stick out and really cement themselves in my mind. Like in the last issue, there's we'll get to it when we get to it. But that one has a really good example as well, I think.
Yeah. Also, my favorite panel in this issue is the panel where Dream goes back into the dream world, where there is this where the features are very exaggerated and it's very detailed, and he gets so swapped up into a whirl of blue and
Oh yeah,
yellow.
the portal.
Yes, the portal.
Yeah, it's just the right amount of goofy, I think. Yeah, also, yeah, that's a beautiful one. Oh, I just have to keep looking at these panels.
I was just gonna say about the art style. It made it kind of look like it was a dream, which I think was intentional, but I think it fit the story.
Mm-hmm. And there's different, it's not just one art style. There's different art style depending on what the content is. There's that one page that has Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley and John Wayne, and it's those faces were caricatures but also very realistic, and you could just tell who these people are. So there was a mixture.
And there's a lot of visual motif around Dream. Like he has his very classic, very pale face, and he's almost always surrounded by black. And then there's the little stars in his eyes.
Yeah, those twinkle eyes.
Issue 2, Imperfect Hosts. After his escape, Morpheus returns to find his realm in ruins. He makes plans to reclaim his lost artifacts. So this one opens with our favorite brotherly set, Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
So sad.
Yeah. Dream has Dream
Cain and Abel and their dinosaur monster.
Their gargoyle.
Yes, gargoyle.
Yeah, and they get a new one too. Yeah, this one is I feel really bad for Abel. Oh, man, he just gets murdered all the time. In an endless cycle. Yeah, so I think the implication here is either that Cain and Abel were stories originally, or maybe Morpheus just took the first murderer and the first victim and just like, hey, do you want to live in my dream world forever? And they said yes, or maybe he just forced them to. I don't know.
Like quite sure the significance of these two in the story.
It's so yeah, dream covers the realm of dreams, the sleeping dreams, the daydreams, but he also covers just like the human mythos, basically. The stories, just stories in general, are his domain, and so a lot of there's a resonance to the story of Cain and Abel, right? There's like brotherly jealousy. There is the desire to destroy your own kin. That's like a dark desire that most of us repress or don't feel very strongly.
Okay.
And then, yeah, like there's the death of innocence. It's, the corruption of man, right? Like these are big themes that show up a lot in our stories themselves. So I think he just keeps them around for like historical reasons, basically.
Okay. I guess that does kind of bring up, so in like, I think it's like in the last issue where Death shows up and also just like makes a comment about how similar Dream is to Desire. So it's like, I guess in that sense, the desire to do harm or whatever, it kind of blurs the line between the two of them, which in reality, yeah, I see why.
Yeah, there's a reason that there's a lot of friction between Dream and Desire, and that's I think the big reason why.
Gotcha.
Starkast, what do you think about this one?
Okay, I had to think about a second, because I think I just realized that Evil D, isn't she from issue 1? The woman who left the...
Yes, good catch.
Wait, what is
connection.
it?
So in issue 1, Roger Burgess, his mistress runs off with a man, and they steal the artifacts that Dream has, or that Roger Burgess stole. So the stand, the helm, and the ruby. And so her son is Dr. D, or John D, Dr. Destiny.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Okay. No, but because I just looked at the pages, because those 2 pages are, I think, my favorite of this issue, because I really liked the design of Evil Duo, and I noticed that something that is later referenced in, I think, at the end of chapter issue 2, or even issue 3, with the eye, the
I think it's
eye
the Amulet of
army.
Protection?
Yes.
Yeah.
In one of those panels, she is wearing it at her hand, and
Yes.
I just noticed that now, that she's wearing it there, and that then my thought process began, and then I noticed, oh, she is from issue 1. Yeah, no. In general, I really, really like this issue, because we see Dream's reaction to what happened in his imprisonment, and I kind of think the illustration is funny, of the face he makes when he sees that.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Like it's so comical. It's this weird juxtaposition between what we are feeling, which is so like a little bit bemused at his expression, but also so like feeling bad for him in his feelings of despair and disbeliefment.
Yeah, it's often very easy to forget how old Morpheus is, because he is so dramatic. He makes these crazy faces. His method of getting revenge against the son of Roger Burgess is so over the top. He makes like these big statements like, oh, maybe like I'm gonna go to hell, maybe I'll never return, I don't like my chances.
There are also the 3 witches, and from which I also really like the illustration, and how they are always not chain places, but they are constantly, what's the word, aging. Like, it doesn't seem to me they are schwitzing places in those those panels, but that they are aging and rebirthing.
Well, isn't it? My reading was like they're one entity, but there's like three representation of the one entity, and so the way that they kind of like morph from one to the other is kind of just a way to illustrate that it's like one
One
quote
person.
unquote entity
Mm.
with three different faces, and it's like one of Ash's favorite tropes. Yeah, the crone, mother, and maiden.
Yep, that's what this is. Yeah, absolutely. This is the Three Faces of Eve, it's called. And yeah, the idea is that it embodies the three essential stages of femininity, sort of. You have the maiden who's young and full of life and full of potential. The mother who is at a more nurturing stage and has a kind of maturity about her. And then the crone who is past childbirthing age, who is it has a kind of wisdom and a far seeing that the other two lack. So yeah, this again shows up everywhere in mythology. Like the 3-in-1 here references a bunch of them, saying the Morrigan, the Hecate, several others, and yeah, it's just interesting. Neil Gaiman really likes to play with these patterns and showcase them.
There's definitely one panel that looks like it's just three people wrapped in a blanket. I find kind of funny. But I also really liked how he summoned them, like how he goes through dreams to get what he needs to bring them here. Thought that was an interesting explanation of some of his powers to be able to do that.
Yeah, his powers are really they work in such interesting ways. He's never a directly powerful guy. He's not going to just blast you with a lightning bolt or something.
He plays mind games.
He plays mind games.
We have to acknowledge the cameo that a certain Batman and Robin make in this issue. Like, I knew that, because Sandman is part of the DC universe, that we were gonna get references and stuff, and it's just like, it is kind of weird
Right?
to just see that directly. Like, you're like, oh yeah, I know who those are.
Mm-hmm.
Feel a little out of place.
Speaking of the cameos, yeah, in the first issue, there is a panel that shows the first Sandman in DC Comics as well, who just killed people and sprinkled sand on their bodies. And yeah, I guess Neil Gaiman has it set up so that that Sandman was always just kind of subservient to this one, which is nice. Do we want to move on to issue 3?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Dream a Little Dream of Me, issue 3. First on Morpheus' list is his pouch of sand, which he enlists the aid of John Constantine to help retrieve.
So we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Like the descriptions of Neil Gaiman of female characters. Like it's in every book of his, and here it's not an exception. Like as when I read the first page, I was like, not this again, not this again.
What do you mean?
I got. I have the German version, so I can really read it in that sense.
Would you like me to read it? So we have.
Yes.
Okay. Her nipples are hard and dark and shrunken on breasts like empty pouches. Her hair comes out in clumps when she moves. She tries not to move too much. Her skin is flaking, infected and inflamed. Bed sores cover her back and legs. Her fingernails grew long and brittle, then they broke off. The ragged nails rip her skin when she scratches. Her stomach shrank, then bloated, then it shrank again. Hunger subsided to a low nagging in the back of her mind. It's okay, it goes away.
I dislike such things, such descriptions, but that's just, I think, a personal preference. My main problem is probably just the first sentence. The others are quite pretty, and I think even interesting because it talks a bit about the consequences of the sand.
I will sort of agree. It doesn't bother me, but it is interesting that the first thing he mentions is her boobs.
Yes.
Oh, well, I guess, it doesn't bother me either. It's, I guess, starting off with what is a more kind of like a shocking factor or like a very vivid imagery, and then it carries on throughout the rest of the panels on this page.
I think I mentioned this in the primer that we did, but in case I didn't, the Sandman comics incredibly popular with women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was noted at the time of the release that like Sandman got women buying comics more than anything else ever had, I think.
I did
And
not know
Sandman, yeah, especially teenage girls love Sandman.
that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. Now I want to know why.
I think it might be kind of a similar thing to the appeal of things like Supernatural and Doctor Who.
Okay.
Yeah, you have this like moody, edgy male character who just kind of goes around in a supernatural sense, and it's not violence focused, and character relationships are very emphasized. And I think Neil Gaiman is generally very respectful towards women, and yet he also, I think, deals with feminine issues. Well, I don't know. You can let me know if I'm wrong there, but
he's definitely a lot better than some of his contemporaries.
Yeah, especially in comics at the time, right? Yeah, there are certain artists that drew women in anatomically impossible ways, emphasizing certain features of theirs. And this was very popular for a long time, which probably drove a lot of women away from comics.
Yes, it's probably also just because I got older in a lot of books by newer authors, also not of the 90s or the early 2000s. So I think I just have a different experience with that, like such things happening. Also, like Neil Gaiman is, I think, one only authors who I read where I notice this, like the sexual, this occasional very descriptive writing of women, like because I don't normally see it in the things I read.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he definitely does emphasize it more than a lot of other authors, especially modern authors. Mr. Anderson, do you have any thoughts on this issue?
Is John Constantine from DC?
Oh, yes, he is. And let me tell listeners, if you're in the mood for more Sandman sort of ish comics, read John Constantine Hellblazer. It's a great series.
How long is the series? Like,
so there's like a specific run that is the Hellblazer series. It's I think it's significantly shorter than Sandman.
Okay, I might give that a try.
I really like how the horror aspect was driven up in this issue. Like especially when they arrive in the house, the father being like a flesh room, or just the one person who got into the house just lying on the floor dead, and all those things.
Very evocative.
Yeah, it's very alien-like too, and I guess Lovecrafty.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's an inspiration for a lot of Sandman.
I think I saw somewhere that Gaiman wanted to do, like, each comic has its own type of horror it's doing. This is definitely like the creepy kind of weird hallways and stuff like that kind of horror.
Body horror as well.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's even a little bit, almost a little like Johnson Ito-like.
Oh yeah.
Like when you turn the page and you discover the picture of the woman, like that reminds me a little bit of Johnson Ito. And something else I wanted to say, I really liked that he showed that both of them, both of the characters, they loved each other. Like when Rachel dies, her perfect dream is that he waits for her and that they have a happy life. And I think it's nice to see how drugs destroy a relationship or addiction in general. That it's showcased.
I will also add that one of the things that goes on with John Constantine is that he's haunted by all the people he thinks he's failed. So, depending on how he views this encounter, that might be one more ghost added to the posse.
Yeah. I think in this instance, it also really shows like more of Dream's character, where he isn't like some, dark lord and just like moody and edgy. He also has a heart and has compassion, and he's not just like an aloof kind of god like being. Sometimes he does take people's feeling into heart.
Yeah, and he absolutely didn't have to here, right? Like he's so much more powerful than John Constantine. It's just an emotional appeal, basically, that got him to it.
Yeah.
Oh, another little thing. I really find it funny how John Constantine was haunted by the Sandman song.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of funny.
I need to go listen to that song. I don't think I've ever listened to it from beginning to end.
Whenever I think of it these days, I just think of the cat TikTok that was done for it. I hope
I don't know
everybody
what you're
knows what I
talking
mean.
about.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna send it to you.
Okay.
We should move on to, because of time constraints, to the next issue. Hope in Hell, issue number 4. Morpheus travels to Hell, engaging the demon Choronzon in the oldest game to win back his helmet. Lucifer vows revenge. All right, Mr. Anderson, how about you start?
So apparently Hell is under new management since last time he was here.
Yep.
And now we've got a few devils to deal with. Lucifer is very different from the other two, which I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Do we ever find out like what kind of happened there?
I don't remember actually. It might be implied.
There was some implication that like things went wrong, like there was a revolt or something. That this was a truce of sorts, but
it might be in the prequel series that was written.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Beelzebub and what was the other one?
As something.
Azazel.
Yeah.
Azazel. And they actually kind of embody 3 different types of horror as well, right? Like Azazel is very much Lovecraftian, and Beelzebub is like a fly monster, basically. And Lucifer is kind of scary in his own right.
Lucifer is David Bowie.
Lucifer is David Bowie. Yes. Modeled after the man himself.
Maybe we have the same question, because I wanted to ask after Nada.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I wondered what's this about, and there's also another thing that's also later referenced in the next issue, and that's that Dream appears different to different people sometimes, like who Nada is, or if he's even human. But I just guess also that he is different for certain races or ethnicities or cultures.
He absolutely is, and this is something that Neil Gaiman does frequently throughout the series. Morpheus will take on many different forms, and so the scene where he's talking to Nada, she calls him Kaikul, which is her culture's name for him, and this is just normal for him. Like everybody sees him a different way, so there is no canonical way that he looks. It's different for everybody. Neil Gaiman has him as a pale white guy because Neil Gaiman is English. And to cats, Morpheus is a cat. He's a big cat. He's a black cat, of course. But yes, Nada is kind of a hook thrown in. And this is something that will get picked up later. But Neil Gaiman is doing this constantly in these issues. He references the other Endless. He references a Lost Endless. He references Nada. He references at the end of this issue, Lucifer says, "I'm going to destroy him one day." He really likes to set up content for future comics.
Smart thing to do. Get people to keep reading.
Gotta stay employed.
Yeah. But it isn't like that we can figure out what's happening.
I don't think we can. Not with just what we've read.
All we know is that Nada is here because of Morpheus, and she will only leave when he forgives her. So presumably, in Morpheus's mind, she has done something horrible to him, and yet he still loves her.
Can we talk about this word game
competition? Oh, yes.
Thing?
Please. Yes.
From the jazz club aesthetic right up to the actual fight. It's great.
Oh, absolutely, right? Like I totally envisage this as like a smooth talking competition to each other, and like the demons like are probably like snapping in the background doing every move.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I was like, wait, so this is how they fight with just basically like speaking things, like one of those text video games. I don't know what they're called. I know there's like a specific.
Oh man, that's like the most boomer thing I think I've ever heard you say. These
No,
video games.
I'm sorry. I promise I'm not a boomer.
Yeah, for context, the oldest game that they're playing here is actually a legitimate anthropological thing. Everywhere in myths, there is the concept of a shape-shifting battle between usually gods. A more contemporary example is Sword in the Stone, between Merlin and Madam Mim. And you'll notice that they all tend to follow the same kind of structure. They all start small, and then there's a concept of escalation, and also switching between offensive and defensive.
Another question about this game. I'm not quite sure if I understood how Dream won, because he says, "I'm hope."
Okay, so what kills hope?
My thought process was like, if the demon was unalive, is there even someone who can hope?
Well, Morpheus actually kind of addresses this at the end. Yeah, so Lucifer says, "What power have dreams in hell?" And Morpheus says, "Maybe I don't have power here, but what power would hell have if those trapped within it weren't able to dream of heaven?" So that kind of shows the dark side of hope, basically. Because all this torture that's happening to these imprisoned souls would not have any effect, basically, if the damned weren't able to think of a better thing for themselves.
Right.
Oh, and I have to throw out quickly that I like the character design of Agony and Ecstasy.
Oh yeah, I like the design. A lot of the demons I think looked very like traditional demon, but not standard demon. If that makes sense.
They're kind of fun, aren't
Yeah.
Mm.
Also, just the fact that they did indeed call all the demons
they? Yeah.
for this thing.
Which is so extra, because Lucifer knew who had the helmet.
Yeah. Like, how could he not? Come
Yeah.
on. It was more like a little test for Dream, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Shall we move on to issue 5?
I just want to say I love the visual of Morpheus walking through the demons and they just part for him. I thought that was a great way to end the whatever it was, volume or issue.
The issue.
Issue, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the cliffhanger of one day I shall destroy him from Lucifer.
Oh man, let me say the follow-up on that one is a doozy. Get excited.
Wait, when, how long do I have to wait for this?
You don't have to wait too long. No.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you exactly how long you have to wait?
Is it in like the next 3 issues or 3 volumes?
Yes, it's within the next 3 volumes.
Okay.
Passengers, issue number 5. John Dee escapes Arkham Asylum, steals back the Dream Ruby over the body of Morpheus, and settles into an overnight diner.
What a ride.
What? Yeah.
Right.
John Dee is such an unsettling guy.
Yeah.
And his design feels so foreign. Like, it feels deeply wrong, right? Like, his entire... Like, his skin seems to be dead and drained of life. His eyes are always, like, luminous and enormous. It's kind of like Smeagol.
Oh.
His teeth are all, like, crooked and out of place.
He looks like a mummy.
Yeah, that's apt. What do you guys think of the way Morpheus fast travels?
It's kind of funny.
I'm not sure I exactly understand, like, what's going on. Like, why he needs to do that.
He's kind of homing in on the location of the ruby, so most of the time he can just appear where he wants, I think.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, for like this purpose, he specifically needs to move through dreams and like find resonances and triangulate positions and stuff. At least that's how I read it.
Okay. I think that makes sense because, yeah, the modifications that John Dee made to the ruby made it so that he couldn't even use its power.
Yeah, and when he does try and use it, then it just steals energy
More.
from him. Yeah.
Oh, right. This is the issue where OMG, the Martian makes an appearance.
Martian Manhunter, yes.
Oh my gosh, I was so not expecting it. Like, I was like, oh, they're talking about the Justice League. Okay, cool. Oh, there's the Martian.
Apparently the only one who was available that day.
Apparently.
You know that Neil Gaiman was just thinking like, how can he was I think given instructions to make this tie-in. So he was like, what member of the Justice League would work the most? Martian Manhunter, I guess.
Well, I do. Okay, so personally, I mean, I'm not like a huge superhero comics nerd, but I do really like the Justice League, like animated shows and the movies. And The Martian, I think, at least in mainstream, is definitely a very underrated superhero character. And with his like tragic backstory and the way his power works, because he also plays mind games. I thought it was a pretty fitting meeting of these two.
That's a good point. There is also a reference to Swamp Thing in this issue. And yeah, he's not explicitly stated. It's just one of the Justice League guys tells Morpheus that, at some point you should talk to this big green guy I know, who also doesn't have a sense of humor. And that's just a little nod to how Neil Gaiman was very much inspired by the Swamp Thing run by Alan Moore.
Gotcha.
Which focuses actually on a lot of similar things, which is weird, right? Because you wouldn't expect a character called Swamp Thing to have anything behind him, right?
And then the last thing I'll say about The Martian is his little comment about having a secret stash of Oreos. Just dropping it in there.
I don't think they make him on Mars, so he's got to stock up while he's here.
Yeah.
Well, because actually, where is the station even? It's not in space, is it?
No, he goes to like his apartment.
Yeah, it's very weird. I don't actually know where this whole station is, but anyway, not the point.
We also see that Morpheus has a different representation to Martian Manhunter than he does to most people. Yeah, like a giant flaming skull.
That was cool.
Also, this issue has my least favorite plot line, like between yeah, what's the name? Rosemary and
John Dee.
Yeah, John Dee. I kind of dislike those scenes.
What do you dislike about them?
I can't quite say it, but I just felt like that Rosemary was a bit dumb. Like, why would you even take him with you? And then when he gets out, not drive immediately away.
The reason that she takes him with her is because he would have shot her if she didn't, right? Like he steals a gun off of a guard and then he just points it at her basically and is like, "Drive me." So that at least she has good reason for. And then why she didn't just immediately drive away when he got out of the car. He'd gotten her to sympathize with him a bit, and it was like kind of like maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. He does look kind of pitiful here, and he's not like raving at her like a lunatic. He's like clearly off his rocker, kind of, but he doesn't seem like horribly malicious, which to me makes the shooting all the more shocking and sad.
Yeah, that's how I read it too. She's just a good person.
Yeah, and it felt very like immediately she's like, "My boyfriend's a mob hitman and you're going to be sorry if you do anything to me." And at the end she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I just like, can I give you a ride anywhere else?" She just really wants to help him out. She can keep the coat. She's just such a nice person.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have the benefit of being on the outside where we're just like, okay, this character is obviously bad. Come on.
Should we move on to 24/7?
So Atlas.
24/7, issue number 6. Dee warps the minds of the people inside the diner. Morpheus regains his feet to challenge him. And yeah, this comic is just straight up horror.
Yes.
Literally, every person in this diner is effed up.
Yep.
It felt a bit Twilight Zoney and like one of those locked room mystery type things, but horror.
This
I like the Betty character, the waitress, how like she sees herself first as a writer and being a
Yeah.
waitress is just a way to get raw material. I do wonder if like that is a bit autobiographical for Gaiman.
It very well might be. And this idea of gathering raw material, Neil Gaiman revisits it in the series, specifically for the character of Shakespeare.
Okay. Wow.
I liked her at first, Betty, but after
Uh-huh.
her thoughts about Judy,
Oh.
I
Hmm.
didn't very much like her, especially after the sentence about she's sorry for the two girls, and in her novel she has married both of them to very great guys.
Yeah.
Yes, and in that moment, I wanted to throw her out of a window.
I think that's a bit harsh. Like these comics were written in like the 80s or the 70s or the 80s, something like that. So like this was the common view at the time, right? Like you'd probably be hard pressed to find someone who was truly accepting. So yeah, she's just kind of like casually bigoted, and that really sticks out, at least to me, absolutely, as well as like, I'm glad that we don't have like a lot of people think that way anymore.
There's a lot of disturbing stuff in this issue, but to me, one of the things that sticks out to me is the children's TV show towards the beginning when he just has the guy like kill himself on air and then laughs about it. That's that's like the first thing he does. It's really kind of striking.
Mm-hmm.
And as well, the kind of also really disturbing to me was the when that he made them act out like they were like wolves or
Yeah.
lions or something.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, at the end, when he had what's her face stab herself in the eyes.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I also thought how the one woman talked about her necrophiliac preferences
Yeah.
was kind of
Yep.
disturbing, especially the one panel where you only see her eyes and everything is completely dark about her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D does do a lot of twisting, but he never like. There are a lot of moments where it's just the real monsters are the humans.
Yeah, because like for that couple, Betty is like, "Oh, they're such lovebirds," and then in reality, they're both scummy.
Yeah, it's like a relationship founded on like insecurity and toxicness. And shall we move on to Sound and Fury?
The big fight.
Let's.
Yeah, okay. Sound and Fury, issue number 7. Morpheus and D battle over possession of the ruby until D destroys it, returning the power to Dream.
Oh, I was reading because like in my copy of the volume, there's a little afterword by Neil Gaiman. So the like that first page for this issue, there's like this jacket with the flames at the bottom. He said that he was very inspired by this Japanese kimono that he saw once, where it was just a black kimono and there were flames at the bottom, and that's how the look of Dream was inspired.
Cool.
Yeah. So now I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, I see.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. That's really cool. I want that kimono now.
Yeah.
Me too.
So what
I-
happened in this? Oh, right.
They kind
Go.
of do their fight in dreams, and yeah, at the end D crushes the ruby. He's like, I'm gonna destroy you, and then turns out the ruby was just holding since it was holding all Dream's power inside it. When he crushed it, it just released it back. And Morpheus was like, wow, I feel better than I have in thousands of years. Thank you.
Never should have made that ruby.
Yeah. And actually, the crushing of the ruby is a catalyst of sorts for like the entire rest of the story, I think. Because, yeah, he had been putting a lot of himself into the ruby. And when that comes back, he has to deal with all of it. So it's in my reading of this, it's not just his power that's there. It's not just like a battery for it. It's like him that was being stolen away, basically.
So I do have a question. Like, is the design of Dream's helmet, is that significant? I'm guessing it is, but I don't know what it is.
I don't like. I'm sure there's a justification for it, but like, I don't think there's anything significant about it, like plot or character wise. Really, I think it. If I had to guess, it's kind of just like an unsettling image that he had, like a Mothman type image that Neil Gaiman had, and it was like, I want to make this on the page.
Okay.
I guess he did.
I was thinking like he would have a more majestic kind of helmet.
No, it's kind of weird and dorky, isn't it?
Yeah,
But that's Morpheus. He's dorky.
he is dorky.
There's kind of like an ideological conflict that goes on between Morpheus and Dee, and they modified this bit actually a lot for the show. But I kind of like this one better. Dee is kind of a man who has had all of he's in possession of the power of dream, but he hasn't been able to dream for decades, and so he doesn't have any really grand narrative that he wants to see fulfilled. He just kind of is. He wants to feel things, and the way he feels things basically is by puppeteering people and making everything he wants to come true. And it's kind of like a really toxic feedback loop where, as we saw in 24/7, he would just be doing horrible things to these people just so he can feel a little bit more, right? And you need to just keep escalating. It's very much like a drug. And yeah, at the end, Morpheus kind of acknowledges like, okay, so you did do all these horrible things, and that's not okay. But also you were very much twisted by this ruby. And Dee does seem to feel genuine remorse as he goes back to Arkham.
Yeah, I did like the at the end of their fight where Dream just gets really really big and Dee is really small, and just the way that Dream is like paying attention to Dee and talking to him. It's like he could have been really really angry and upset and just like mushed Dee, but he didn't.
Yeah, I think Morpheus actually sees a lot of himself in Dee in a way. Kind of like the opposite of him, because Dream is for the most part, he feels very responsible for his role, and Dee is kind of like the exact opposite. Like, what if I just kind of ran loose with my powers? That's what it ends up like.
I also think it's interesting in the beginning of this issue, he like curses the one guy with eternal nightmares for capturing him and whatever. And now he's just like, okay, Dee, you can just go home now. Take a rest.
Right. Yeah, it is an interesting contrast.
Maybe Dream is a little grateful because Dee did something he didn't think of, and in return, like Dream got back his powers.
I think that's correct, yeah. The Sound of Her Wings, issue number 8. Morpheus accompanies his sister as she goes about her business for a day. I love this issue.
I like this one.
I forgot it was a full issue. I thought this was like 2 pages at the end of the book. I forgot there's a whole issue about them.
Yeah, no, it's this might be my favorite incarnation of death. In all the stuff, I tend to really like incarnations of death, and specifically, like, yeah, this is what Neil Gaiman said that he would like when he dies. He wants someone who's just kind of kind and understanding to take him away to find out what happens. And
she's got a good sense of humor, but like she's also pretty dorky. Like I was not expecting that whole bit about Mary Poppins. It just felt kind of weird and out of place, but there it is.
She's very much someone who loves life, which is ironic, right? And yeah, they just kind of chat about the philosophy of death, and neither of them see it as something horrible. And Dream recites actually a really beautiful poem on the nature of her. And for a while, like, she was really really depressed, basically, because nobody wanted her gift, as she called it.
Oh yeah.
And then she kind of just like learned to embrace her role again, and she treats people with just like the utmost empathy as they're passing on.
I really like the scene where Dev takes the bread from him and throws it at him. I really think that the reaction of Dream was just perfectly drawn, especially with like his hand and hair covering one of his eyes, and the other one just totally like surprised and like not on guard. In most of the other pictures in the volume, his eyes are very closed and here it's just really open.
Yeah.
If that
He
makes
was
sense.
not expecting that reaction from her. Like he was being a mopey moped.
Yeah,
And she
right?
was just like, "Oh, come on."
And yeah, this is, I mean, like, she's his older sister, right?
Yeah.
So she's the one that can give him a real kick in the pants to, get over himself, basically.
Yeah. I love the relationship. And then just the way like we follow Death as she, goes and does what she's meant to do. Especially so that the soccer ball person, kid,
Franklin, I think.
Franklin or
Yeah.
whatever, because we know she's Death and she says, "Sure, Franklin, you'll see me again soon."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay. Bye-bye, Franklin.
Bye-bye, Franklin. And yeah, these little scenes that she has with people are they're so emotional for me. Like
Yeah.
the old Jewish man who makes sure to recite his last prayer before he dies. And
Yeah.
so the panel I was referring to earlier as like a really effective panel is when he asks what happens now, and she says, "Now's when you find out, Harry." And she has one face entirely in darkness, or one side of her face entirely in darkness, and the other showing. And by the way, her makeup is entirely on point. So
It
good
is.
job, Death.
Yes.
Uh,
And the scene with the baby.
Scene with the baby. That's it. That's all I get. I'm afraid so. Oof.
Oof, oof, oof.
Yeah, I'm gonna spoil a line from later in the series. At some point, she says, "You get what everyone else gets. You get a lifetime." Oh, man, Death in these books is so good.
I am very much looking forward to watching the show. So after reading the first volume, I can watch the first 2 episodes.
You can
Is that
watch the
correct?
first
Or
6.
first 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
And okay, so I'm gonna send you guys actually a little short animated comics that DC did that introduced the character of Death, and then absolutely watch the show. The show, they do a great job with Death. The actress that plays Death is very, very good. It's not quite how I envision Death from the comics. So I prefer the comics version, but it's absolutely the episode where they do this issue is very, very good.
Okay. I'm excited.
Good.
I do just want to say I love the last image of this where Death is just like gleefully feeding the pigeons. Dream, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's really invigorated again.
He's making fat pigeons.
I think he's sprinkling sand at them, but
Oh, never mind. Just kidding.
making sleepy pigeons maybe. Do we have any more thoughts on this issue before we go to listener questions?
Well, I think Star has to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to go.
Okay, so I think we're probably just gonna quickly get to the listener questions. Star, you can go.
Just say bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Go volume
See ya.
2. Or issue volume 2.
Lammy Lambs asks, if you managed to trap Dream while trying to trap Death, what would you ask for in exchange for his release?
Having read this, I think I'll just quietly let him go and apologize.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm very sorry, sir. You have more important things to do. Please just
Forget I was here.
This is clearly some kind of mistake. I never intended to do this. I don't want to trap an anthropological personification of a fundamental concept of the universe. Please don't destroy my life.
Yep. I mean, I guess truthfully, I don't know. I don't really know what I would ask for. Maybe his friendship. Can you be my friend?
I think imprisonment is a good basis for friendship. But okay.
We can amend this question to being, if you could ask one thing of Dream, what would you ask for?
I have his coat.
I would probably I'd probably ask for the ability to fall asleep whenever I wanted, and to always wake up feeling refreshed.
That would be amazing.
Right. My mom has that ability. She can just fall asleep whenever, and I am so jealous.
I can't, man. I would still want to be his friend. Like I want him on my side.
Oh, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
You'll see what his friendship looks like later on.
Is that a good thing?
Um, you'll see. You'll see. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
It's okay. It's not horrible. Is what I'm gonna say. It's not horrible.
Okay.
You know, he's well-meaning.
Okay.
Red Army Ian asks, why were only a few people affected by Dream's absence? So
Not enough people dream.
not enough people dream. I would posit that a lot of people were affected by Dream's absence. First of all, like the sleepy sickness, I think it was estimated to impact like 500,000 people, which wild, right? But also, if you look at where Dream is trapped in the story, it's during World War One, I think, or during or just before. I don't remember.
Story.
But in any case, after that happens is the things like the Russian Revolution, the Great Depression, World War II, the Cold War, the Korean War. A lot of like the truly horrible things that happened to humanity's past, like also like the Holocaust, seem to happen when Dream is away. People's dreams and aspirations seem to get twisted, to get exceptionally bad.
Is it that?
Mhm.
Okay, this might be a little too meta, but like, is it that when Dream is not there, then desire just doesn't have any check against it, and so people's desires just take over?
I think that's a big part of it, yeah. Yeah, Neil Gaiman likes to generally focus in on specific humans when he talks about tragedy, right? Like he goes over like a bunch of, in the first issue, a bunch of people who were affected, like Unity Kincaid, who will show up again later, by the way. Yep.
And her child?
And her child, yes. Her child will show up, and her child's child will show up. Yeah. And it'll be important.
Okay.
Kiptan asks, what do you think of the domains of the Endless? Okay, so I'm going to add on to this question. We've only seen one domain so far, and it's been ruined at that. So we'll probably have this as an ongoing question throughout the series. Whenever we see a new domain of the Endless, I'll just kind of insert this in again if I remember, and we can give our thoughts. So what do you guys think about Dream's Realm?
Needs a little touch up. But his he does that thing where he I don't know, shows his previous castle, and it looked pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like a glass castle in the sky or whatever.
It's very glassy. Yeah.
I should say that his library is especially cool. In it, there is every book that was never written. Yeah. So if you ever had like a famous author that died before they could write their masterpiece or whatever, that's in Dream's library.
That would be a ginormous library.
It's enormous. Yes, it is very, 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 very big. Probably most of it is nonsense.
Huh. Yeah, I guess. I mean, we did see some of his domain, but because of the state that it was in, we didn't get to see it in its all its glory. So I'm excited to see what it is like now that he has all his power back.
I forget. Did you guys see Merv in this volume? Merv. I love Merv. He's just he's one of Dream's servants, and he has a pumpkin for a head.
Oh yes. Wait, I think we did. Maybe
I don't remember him. Maybe briefly because a pumpkin head sounds familiar, but
yeah.
But it could have been something else.
Yeah, if he wasn't here, then he wasn't really giving long monologues, I think. He's just kind of like this surly guy he's been working for Dream for a long time, and he's kind of sick of it, kind of just like a blue collar guy. I like Merv.
I don't think we did see Merv. We saw that dude. Remember
there
his
was
name?
Lucian.
Lucian.
Yeah, Lucian is part of the realm. Cain and Abel are part of the realm. Their little gargoyles are part of the realm. And then we saw like a bunch of dreams, but we haven't properly seen Morpheus's castle when it's in its proper shape.
I am kind of curious, thinking to the end of the series, how it all ends, like what it's building up to.
Do you have any guesses?
Name will fade to black. I don't know. And it's just there's no more personification. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. That's a really interesting prediction. That's a really interesting prediction.
Okay.
I will say, my first time reading it, I felt like the end was something that was happening that was like inevitable, but I couldn't quite guess what it was, or didn't want to guess what it was. But at the end, I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense."
I mean, it'll be a very Gaiman ending.
Yes, you know what? It's a very Gaiman ending. I'd say it's a good game and ending though.
Okay.
Are you guys liking this better than, for example, like Neverwhere?
Oh, I like Neverwhere. I like this too, but
Sorry, Panda, was it you that didn't like Neverwhere? Who didn't like Neverwhere?
I mean, I didn't think it was like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. I do think it's something that I want to revisit now that I'm more accustomed to Gaiman's style, and his like, sense of weird. The first book that I read by him was Oceans at the End of the Lane, and I really did not like it when I read it, but I haven't revisited it since.
Okay, so impressions of this series so far. Let's say.
I like it.
Like it?
I'm looking forward to the next volume.
weird. It's fun. What's not to like?
I do think like so I'm not that into horror, and this kind of level of horror is like enough. If it were too much more, I might be a bit turned off, but it also depends on how I feel about like the plot and the characters.
Yeah, I think this is the most horror volume in the series. But yeah, I do really like how he does the creepy, spooky aspects. He's never like a jump scare kind of guy, right?
Right.
Which is, I think, what turns a lot of people off of horror when it's just like anxiety inducing. That's not fun for anybody.
Yeah.
I don't like. Okay, it's not fun for a lot of people. Some people really enjoy it, but yeah, I personally hate that kind of horror as well. Like if there's jump scares in a movie, it brings it down like a star or two usually, unless it's really well executed.
I've walked out of a movie because I was just like, I cannot take this.
Yeah, fair, right? But when it's like a kind of like a spooky, atmospheric, existential horror, I really like that kind of stuff.
Yes, you do.
I do. So I'm going to give a few of my thoughts, non-spoilery thoughts on the show, just for listeners' interest. So the show, remember when I said in the primer how the short form of the comics really reins in a lot of Neil Gaiman's excesses? The show has hour-long episodes.
Okay.
So the first issue, the first episode of the show, it covers the first issue, and so it adds a lot of stuff, which some people like, some people don't. I personally thought it reduced the effectiveness, but the show is generally quite good. I would say it's generally a very good adaptation. It's much less on the spooky side as well.
Okay.
So I think it probably would have done better as like a shorter runtime. But at the same time, like it's about as good as I think you can expect an adaptation to get. Neil Gaiman himself really likes it. There are quite a few people upset about how diverse the cast is, shall we say? Which I feel like I don't even need to address, really. Okay, I'll address it. For characters like Dream and Death, it actually doesn't matter terribly much what they look like. Death has a black actress, and she is a perfectly fine representation of Death, right? Like, Franklin is also black in the show, and so Neil Gaiman says, if it helps, you can look at it like this is Franklin's perception of her. But also, like, it's such a bizarre criticism to have. Gwendoline Christie looks almost exactly like Lucifer does. I think there is, her voice isn't quite right, and I think like they're missing like a bit of majesty. But honestly, I couldn't really expect more from her. John Constantine is Joanna Constantine, and that's Jenna Coleman, I think, or I don't know, one of the people that was in Doctor Who, one of the companions, and she does really well. I think I actually like Joanna Constantine better than I like John Constantine, at least in this, because John Constantine in this kind of feels like a generic guy if you don't know him better. And let's see, there is a lot more attempt to tie things together in the show, concretely, and I think that sort of succeeds and sort of doesn't. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the show. I still would recommend checking it out if you like Sandman. Absolutely. And you might actually like it better than you like the comics. A lot of people do. Do you guys have any thoughts before we round out the episode?
Can't wait to see what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
What crazy adventures Death will get in. Or, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep doing that. Dream will get into.
The next one's a good one, I would say. Okay. That concludes this episode. If you want to join the read-along or contribute listener questions, check us out on the Legendarium's Discord. You can find the link on legendarium.com. Also follow us on Twitter, Green Team Pod, for updates and fun times. Check out the Legendarian podcast for real time, Cosmere, Lord of the Rings content, and so much more. Thank you to our panelists, Befuddled Panda,
Bye.
Mr. Anderson, and Starkast, who is not present anymore.
But I'm sure he would say goodbye as well.
He would say a very loving goodbye to you if he could. Until next time.